Thank you.
All right, guys, we're live. We're getting our coffee right here. Welcome into the Joe Lockett show. How y'all guys doing? Fifth the Coffee Pot with your boy Joe Lockett. Y'all having conversations with me this morning. How y'all doing? Welcome in. If y'all just tuning in, y'all kind of saw the back of the owner that he was bringing me my coffee. I got a great guest, and we're getting things situated. But welcome into the show. Come on in, y'all. How y'all doing? Got a lot to get into the show today. I got a great friend of mine. I can't even say a friend; it's a family member. Is on the show. A lot of degrees, very beautiful, very smart. I didn't dot the I's across T's. I didn't graduate from. I graduated from high school, but I'm highly uneducated. You know what I mean? I'm educated though. I know a little bit, but no, she's been a great friend of mine. Dr. Melva Tate is in the building today, y'all. This is a conversation that I've never had with her. We've talked a lot, but today we're gonna have a conversation over coffee. So what I need y'all to do, real talk, is grab your coffee here in a few minutes because she's in the building. She came back out of a high-powered meeting to come meet with her brother today. You know what I'm saying? To get here. So I really appreciate it because to get her time is, let me try to tell you something. To get on her schedule is even tough, right? And I know her personally. But anyway, y'all stay tuned because the things that she's going to be talking about with Women's Month, the things of her entrepreneurship, how she's done things in her life. She came from something to went to becoming a multimillionaire. So listen, hang tight for this, y'all. Her story is phenomenal. But before we get into that, there's a lot of things going on in the country today, and I want to talk to people because everybody's upset. Everybody's seeing things changing, right? And I talk about this sometimes weekly on this show. We're going to be okay. I want everybody to understand, no matter who you are, no matter what your political leaning is, what all the stuff, we're not doing that on the show. But I want everybody to take a deep breath. Me and my sister before the show, we did a woosah. We did a numb your hole. You know what I'm saying? We was like, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to get into this conversation. God didn't bring us to this far to drop us off. We got to remember who we believe in this country, right? We believe in God. We don't believe in anybody. And if you believe in God like I do, right, at the end of the day, what's happening is supposed to happen. You don't like things that happen in your life. It happens though, and you get through it, right? So whatever's happening now is happening for a reason. Do I know God's reason behind everything? No. But one thing I do know, God has blessed me very much. From where I've been through bad days and good days. He brought me back from Saudi Arabia. I went through the desert storm. I was there, right? So knowing that I done been through a whole lot of stuff through 2 divorces and I'm now successful myself, at the end of the day, when I tell y'all this right here, America, we're going to be okay. Everybody, let me say this again, everybody's going to be okay, not just some people. So hang in there, y'all. Stay prayed up. And the other thing I'm going to tell y'all, man, let's band together. Stay off of social media. Stop fighting with people. And let's just band together and make sure we work together. That's what we do here on Coffees and Conversations. Appreciate you guys liking and make sure you follow all our channels. Now, with any further ado, this guest here, I have been trying to get on for probably about a good year now to come to the podcast. When we had called it something else and now it changed over to this, she finally got her schedule free. I have been knowing her for probably about the last 10 to 12 years. This woman has taught me so much about business. This woman believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. She's been with me through when I was up. She's been with me with down. Y'all know those kind of friends that you didn't know they was going to be your friend, that it turned out to be your friend, but she turned out to be more than a friend. She wound up being like a family member. This woman here showed me love and support even on a day that we're going to talk about that. I knew she loved me, and we're going to talk about that here on the show today. But I want you guys to know, man, and I've said this many times on this show with Coffees and Conversation. When you got a good friend, you got somebody you love, make sure that you spend the time with them, right? Make sure they know how much you adore them. Don't take that for granted. And without any further waiting, the one and only doctor, mom, daughter, friend, entrepreneur, CEO, money bags is what I call it. Always riding around in a Range Rover. The only person that knows about 3 Range Rovers in a year. We're gonna tell you that story anyway. Dr. Melva Tate's in the building. What's going on, sis?
Wow, Joe. That was impressive. So I think I owe you $20 for that introduction. That was very profound. But I am excited to be here. And you are absolutely right. You did not have to tell everybody that you've been trying to get me here for about a year and a half, but we are finally here. And yeah, things have been good. So Monday I was in Charlotte doing leadership training, and yesterday, and I was in Atlanta because I'm on an international board called Heart for Africa, and we had to
Mhm.
go through our quarterly meeting and some strategic planning. So sat through a 6-hour meeting there and got home late last night. Business meetings this morning, and I am here.
Yes.
So yeah. So when you say busy, yeah, busy, but all good things. All good things.
You know, I remember the first time I met you, I snatched your microphone.
You did.
I met you at a radio station on someone else's show.
Yes.
I think it was his name, Hollis.
On Hollis show.
Hollis show.
We were sharing mics.
We were sharing microphones,
and I was not done.
and I didn't know you wasn't
So,
done. Yeah.
and as a trained speaker and presenter, we always know to throw in that little pregnant pause.
Yeah.
To let it resonate
Yeah.
with the audience.
Yeah.
And you thought I was done.
I
and you
did.
snatched the mic. And
Yeah.
I was like, hold up, bro.
Man, I was so scared because the way she said it, it was not professional. It was that ghetto, like, yo, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause, hey, she said it as she was pulling, I'm not done yet. Right. I was like, whoa. But that started a beautiful friendship. So before we get into our story, this is what I want to do. This is Women History Month.
Okay.
Thank you for all your contributions that you've done.
Well, thank you.
Okay. What you've meant to society, the community, and globally, what you things that you do, because we're going to talk about your travels and the stuff that you do there. But I want to take people back before they see the doctor, right? The mom, the entrepreneur, the CEO. Let's get back down to where it all first started, right? The little girl, Melva McCrae.
Yeah, Melba Jean McCrae.
Okay, let's talk about her. All right, tell me where you started from, sis.
So listen, I
it's okay if I call you sis on because I know you're doctor.
Of
Okay,
course,
all right.
but you always call me sis.
I
It would
do.
feel abnormal if you didn't call me that.
All right.
Listen, I have no hesitation in telling people, look, I'm just a girl from Winona Projects, straight from the hood. You know, I was born in Indiana. My parents separated when I was 5. We moved back to Alabama, where both of my parents are from. And I grew up in Winona Projects. We were one of the first families to move in. So it was like a new apartment complex for us. But that taught me a lot about just life. And it taught me a lot about family. It taught me a lot about community. And some of those individuals that I grew up with are still friends today. And it's been great to see, not only have we succeeded, not only have I succeeded at the projects, but to see so many of them doing phenomenal things. So, but yeah, I'm a round the way girl. I'm a hood girl. So when I snatched that mic, that was that hood girl coming up out of me. Right.
So you grew up in Winona.
Yes.
Mom and dad in the house?
So mom and dad married, divorced when I was 5 because we lived in Indiana. Because I was born in Indiana, and then so was raised by my mom from the time that I was 5 till the time that I was 15, and then ironically they fell back in love, got back together, remarried when I was 15, and then we moved back to Indiana. So when people ask me, what school am I from or what neighborhood am I from, I struggle with telling them, well, I'm from Winona, and they was like, okay, well, you graduated with such and such. I was like, well, no, I didn't really graduate from Winona. I went from the 1st to the 9th grade, but then graduated from the famous Gary Roosevelt in Gary, Indiana. And then, end up eventually moving back home where family was from after serving in the military and everything else. So, yeah, but I'm a girl from Winona.
So growing up in Winona, eventually graduating from Indiana, what was it like, going through school? Were you getting good grades? Were you successful? Were you top of the class? What did that look like for us?
It's that you're going to put me on the spot. Now, I was smart, right?
Okay.
So, but yeah, always made good grades. What was ironic about me is that I'm the same height now that I was when I was in the 6th grade.
Really?
Yes. So I'm 5'11", so really 5'10" and 3/4. So I say 5'11" once I put shoes on. But I was taller than most of my teachers, right? But I was also smart, and I was also very intuitive, and I always went above and beyond. So I finished my work. So I got a lot of privileges in school to work in the office or take names whenever the teacher was out and everything else. But yeah, even though I was this same height, I was probably about I want to say I got an extra 125 pounds on me now. So
And
not
it looks good
necessarily the
on you.
same weight,
Right,
weight,
right.
but the same height. Yeah. But I did
So,
well in school. I
so
was
you so you
active
did
in
well in school.
school,
Okay.
in the band.
Hmm.
So I was a marching dragon.
Okay.
I was a flag girl in the band. And then when I went to moved to Indiana, I
Hmm.
was a majorette.
Hmm.
So I had to use these long legs for something.
So when you was in school in high school, what did that young girl want to be? What were you thinking?
I um I really struggle. So it's so interesting now that I help people navigate their careers.
Okay.
And I do think it's important that I reflect on my growing up and trying to find out what was I going to be, what was going to be the role for me. I really thought that I wanted to be a dentist.
Really?
Yes,
Wait a minute.
I wanted to be. Yeah, yeah. I got these nice teeth.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
still
do.
believe in great dentistry,
Right, right.
but I wanted to be a dentist growing up, and I I was in the, we graduated in the 80s,
Hmm.
late 80s, and the guidance counselors were really pushing females towards STEM. That's when science, technology, engineering, math really came out.
Hmm.
And obviously there's a lack of, has continued to be a lack of over the past 30 plus years of women in those particular fields. So there was a big push and drive for young girls to go into those non-traditional fields of
Right, right.
study. And so I had a great guidance counselor who talked to me about exploring different opportunities. I'm gonna tell you one thing. We're gonna get back to it in a minute, but
Okay.
there was one thing that helped me make my decision.
Okay.
But anyway, I ended up taking an ASVAB as part of the preparation and decided that I wanted to go into engineering. And then discovered that my path to engineering would be, and that was a tough decision for me. But yeah, going into engineering. So I'm
Okay.
gonna leave it right there, and then we're gonna come back
Okay.
around to that.
So with that being said, did you go to college right out of
Uh-huh.
high school? What that look like?
Yeah. So that feeds right into it. So what many people don't know, unless you're really close to me, is that I have two children. So most people see Danielle through
Mhm.
social media,
Yeah.
and our travels and everything else. But my oldest child is Jamel, my son,
Yes.
who will actually be 38 next month.
Right.
Right. So 38 or 39, I lose track because I barely can keep up with my age. But I had him in my junior year. Yes. So I had a child in high school. And
Okay.
most people don't realize that.
I didn't
It's
even
like, I
think.
didn't even
I
think about that.
I,
Yeah.
I did not.
So although I continued to make good grades, I
Mhm.
had a tremendous family support. I decided because of that independence in me and that controlled nature in me that I wanted to be self-sufficient. So instead of going directly to college, although I had offers, I graduated number 11 in my class of
Mhm.
like almost 400.
Mhm.
So had really good grades, and but I wanted to make sure that I could support myself and my child. So instead of going directly into going straight to college, I
Mm.
decided to go into the military because that would provide me the additional education, but then also the opportunity to start making money so I can take care of myself and my child.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't
Yeah.
even. I knew you had a son, but I
Mhm.
didn't know it was in high school.
Uh-huh.
I need to ask you this question. You don't
Yeah.
have to answer if you want, but I want to ask you this question. Being that number 11 person in
Uh-huh.
school, everybody got these bright stars shining about
Uh-huh.
you. When you realized you were pregnant, what did you feel? What was your thought pattern? What was that like for you at that time? Were you
Um,
scared?
I was scared because I was one of those that was the first time doing that thing and you
Right.
didn't really know.
Right, 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 right,
And
right,
it was
right.
like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So it was devastating to my parents because of
Mhm.
course, the path that I'd been on, very
Right.
respectful child, never got in trouble, always good grades,
Mhm.
active in the community and school, church, and everything else. So it was a little shocking, but of course we made the right decision that we would carry through the pregnancy and
Mhm.
have the child. And I, unlike many others, did not have really good, who don't have it. I had a really good community, really
Mm.
good family support, really good friend support.
Mhm.
And so it was my parents still allowed me to stay in the band, once I
Wow.
had and it was so ironic because I barely showed being so little,
Right.
and then up until the final months, and when most people found out or knew, so I rarely missed school. I think I missed a couple of weeks in school
Mhm.
toward the end of the school year,
Okay.
so it really didn't impact me academically.
Mhm.
And then once we got back to go for the next year, then caught
Wow.
up with everything else and went on that way. But yeah, and Joe, I think that there have been a lot of experiences that I've had in my life that I
Mhm.
think when you think about them and
Mhm.
how impactful they were have made me into the woman that I am.
Right,
Because I
right.
don't think I would have, although I've always been mature and I've always been a leader when I reflect back on my interaction
Mhm.
with those that I was around, even at an early age. I do think that helped me mature a lot faster,
Mhm.
mature in a very positive way. And I also think I would not have got the great experience of being in the military and traveling the world unless I went through that. What you said earlier in your opening, God don't make mistakes,
Mm.
right? And when we see things and we don't have that clear understanding as to why,
Mhm.
but if we have faith and we believe and stay on the journey and on that path, eventually it will be revealed, right?
Right, right.
And so I truly believe that that was the time and place, but because I probably would have never had kids, to be honest.
Wow.
I think if I would have went directly into my career
Mhm.
and done those things that I was set to do, I probably would not have been a mom.
Wow.
But now to be a mom and have kids that are now they're 9 years apart, and that was something within itself, right? Raising two different sets of children in two different generations, basically. But it really, really it helped ground me and
Mhm.
it helped me see life in a different perspective.
Wow.
I do think I probably would have been a lot more selfish than I am. I'm a giver
You're a
now.
big giver.
Exact. I'm a big giver. And I think I probably would have been a more selfish person and more self-centered and thinking about me
Mhm.
and what I had planned in my journey versus, having to think about others.
Wow.
And so now in life, for me, having my children early, because, I had one in my late teens and one in my late 20s,
Mm.
that has given me the freedom now to just
Right.
really live the world and go and
Yes,
do
that's why
things
we
I
see you
want to
traveling and
do. And
everything, yeah.
so it's a little bit different than someone having a baby at 30, right?
That's
No
very
shade
true.
on y'all, but listen, I got mine out of the way and I'm
Right.
enjoying life and things are well.
If y'all just like it right now, go ahead. I want you to pour you some tea so you can
Thank
drink it.
you. Thank
We're
you,
like
thank
we're
you.
talking to the wonderful Dr. Melva Tate. She's in the building with us, y'all. Phenomenal story that we're going through Women History Month here. We have taken you through the little girl from Winona. She graduated in Indiana, and she had a kid when she was in the 11th grade. Now she's in the military. So if y'all just joining in, go ahead and warm your cup of coffee up, and let's get on back into this conversation.
Okay.
So what branch of service did you join?
I was Navy.
Okay, so was I.
So you were Navy. I
Right.
was Navy, the most elite military service there is. I think so.
Preach.
Plus, we got them bomb uniforms,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
always
yeah,
look
yeah,
good in
yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
uniforms. And really, I decided to join the Navy. I knew I wanted to go in the military, but I was not sure of which branch. First, I got to pause and say
Sure.
this tea is phenomenal.
Okay.
This is one of the best teas I've ever had.
So
So I'm going to
Jeremy-
make sure
Yeah.
I get some to go,
Okay,
right?
all
This
right.
is the bomb.
All
So
right.
thank you for that. I got a new place to come. But I went down to the what do they call the center where you go and sign up
Recruitment
or an
center.
explore recruitment center.
Yeah.
And it was several of the guys were there, and at that time I think they were all male recruiters, but the Navy recruiter he had to be about 6'6", chocolate brown skin in that white uniform and all. Look, I saw nobody else but him, and I was like, "Hey,
Wait a minute.
listen,
Wait a minute.
I'm
You
not
joined the
lying.
military.
I'm not lying. Listen, when I was, I did. I joined the
Wow.
branch of military based on who was the most handsome guy in the recruitment center. And I actually told this story. I was one of
Are you serious?
I was one of the Birmingham Business Journal's top 40 under 40 years ago.
Mhm.
And they asked me about joining the military, and I actually told this story. So if you Google it, you can
Mhm.
find. I'm verified. I don't
Right,
have
right.
no shame in telling people I joined the Navy because he was the finest guy in the room. He was.
Did you get to know him?
I did not get to know him. Look, when I went back, he was already gone. But there were many others
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
Navy encounter that were very similar. So
Okay. I got you.
I don't even remember his name, but I know
You remember what he
exactly
looked
what he
like.
looks like.
All these years later.
All these years later, he got me in the Navy, right?
I ain't mad at him.
Look, they probably were sending
him.
him all around to from state to state to state to recruit because they needed women,
Right.
And luckily for me,
Mhm.
we talk about leadership. I remember boot camp so fondly because the first week we were there, we had an RCPO for 2 days.
Mhm.
That's the person who is going to lead that team of potential recruits through boot camp, and she lasted about 2 days, and then they tapped somebody else, and I was 18 at the time. They had tapped somebody else that was a little bit older, because you could be up to 28 to get in the military at the time. And so she lasted for 2 days, and I noticed, one of the things that I tell people around leadership is that you model the behavior that you want others to emulate. So leaders are leaders without a title. You can lead from your sphere of influence. And what I realized very on in joining the Navy is that our drill sergeants, for lack of a better term, one was white, one was black, one was Hispanic, and they had to be the meanest women I had ever met in my life. They were very direct, they were straight, but they did not play. And so when they came to me after day 5 and said, "Come in, McCray," and I thought I was in trouble, but I was doing everything right. And they's like, "Look, we'd have been through 2 women that have failed us, and we need a leader for this group, and you're going to be it, and you're not going to fail, and you're going to be our leader too until you get us past the graduation mark." And I did it. So I was the RCPO, and that was really my first official leadership role that I was paid for, because I was getting paid at the time.
But
I knew I was a leader.
But here's something that you didn't know about me too, that I fell into a leadership position in boot camp.
Oh, did you really?
I was the guy then.
Oh, we needed you. Yeah,
I carried the flag.
We wasn't gonna go nowhere without that flag.
I carried the flag. So like you said, leaders are it's something about them, but people, right? You step up. And one thing for me was, if people don't know being in boot camp, is that if you get a position, you get out of boot camp with a promotion.
Exactly.
Right. And so for me, it was like, because I think we have like 80 people that you start with in boot camp, and you end up probably maybe 30 or 40 of them, right?
Because people are dropping like flies.
Because everybody think they could make boot camp, right? But a lot of people, you could. For me, I'm gonna ask you this, Greg. For me, I made it through boot camp because I didn't want to go back home. I knew that I had nothing left. I didn't have any college. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have any degree, any scholarships waiting for me. So if I went back home, it's gonna be working at McDonald's or working in a plant. So that was it for me. So I had to make it through boot camp. So my mindset was, I'm not going home. I went through remedial swimming because I almost failed out of swimming because I didn't know how to swim. But the last day when I was able to do swimming, right? I never told the story, right? But I kicked my way through swimming. Wow. I went down a couple of times, and they was finna come get me. They would have got me. I was gonna send me home. I told them no. I damn near drowned.
Made it to the other side.
I got to the other side, put them dungarees around me, and I floated out. So being a leader, you have to, I think, dig deep. When you say, even though you're in a leadership position, you can lose your leadership position because of you may lack some talents and other things. And that's what the military taught me. Even though I was the guy done, I still wasn't the guy done in my life, because there were skills that I didn't have that I had to force myself to learn. And to that, you say what?
Yeah, you know what? That is life. Life puts us in situations where we're either gonna step up or step back. And I am not. This is not criticism toward those who step back and maybe reevaluate, as long as they don't stop. But it does put us in positions that it forces us to challenge ourselves and find out what else is in us that we don't even realize, or others may not have seen. So for you saying, "Hey, don't come get me. I'm gonna kick till I get to this other side and get them dungarees that serves as a little flotation device to get to the other side," was your determination. And that is probably because, and you may not even realize, or maybe you did see what your life would look like flashing in front of you in that moment. In that very moment, you see, if I don't do X, Y, and Z, then this is going to be the impact on my life. And I think that we all have situations that come up in our life, not just in boot camp and not just in times of struggle, that makes us pause and think and push ourselves a little bit further.
For sure. And we got people out there on social media saying hello to you. So let's say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Your camera is right there.
Yes, my camera's right here. Yes.
How y'all doing? I see you out there, Deborah. I see you out there, Lady J. How y'all doing, man? Thanks all for chiming in and having coffees and conversation with us. So we made it through boot camp. How many years did you stay in?
I did 4 years.
You did 4 years.
Four solid years.
Okay.
2 med cruises. So actually, when I joined, after I finished school, my ship that I was stationed or assigned to was the USS Sierra out of Charleston, South Carolina. and they were already midway through the cruise, so they flew me to France. So I had never flown that long before. Yeah, we. They flew me to France, and it was so ironic that the very next day that I got there, we were in Marseille, France, and they were celebrating Mardi Gras. And it was just the wildest time ever.
Okay.
So I got off that ship, now people were partying, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna love this. This gonna be my jam
Right.
Yeah, so I did 2 med cruises, came out, and I went in the engineering field, obviously. But what was unique, and this is why it's so important that you listen to people who are put in your path, and then still show up as who you are. So for me in the military, although I was in the engineering field and I had the aptitude and the skills to serve in the engineering capacity and did well in it, I realized it was not my calling. So again, I say I was kind of pushed toward going into engineering because I had the grade level and testing level to do all of that. And it sounded interesting. But once I got in the military and was assigned to my department, I found myself navigating toward being a mentor and coaching others when they came on board. So the new people. And so I would tell my boss, don't worry about it. I'll train them or I'll do all their paperwork. And so he realized that was not something he liked, because obviously when you move up and if you got a certain skill set and you do well, people will tap you to move up. And then that sometimes takes you out of what you do well, right?
Sure.
So his thing was he was very technical. He could do all that stuff, troubleshoot and do everything that was necessary, but he hated the paperwork. So I came along begging to do all of that and begging to train people and mentor people. He was like, you do all that stuff. And I was like, oh, you know what? I really like this. So that's when I started pursuing the degree in human resource management while I was in the military, because I realized engineering was not for me. It was more of those people and relationships. So if you hear me talk about who I am, I discovered my purpose early on in life. And I'll say, well, not really early on. It solidified once I realized what it was. But my purpose in life is a connector. I was placed on this earth to connect people with information, resources, and tools that just make them successful through life's journey. So I'm what they call on the street the plug. Now I ain't illegal plug. Don't be calling me talking about you want something illegal. But if you need to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, call me and I may know somebody. So that's what I do. And so my superpower is a fixer. So as we start talking about kind of what I do and how I serve our community professionally, I think I'm a great consultant because I always have my lens on how can I fix this situation and make it better. And so that is my superpower. And then of course we all know superheroes have some that get in their way. My kryptonite is I'm impatient. So I probably ran over about 4 or 5 people on the way here. They probably reported my tag because this woman driving crazy and this Range Rover zigzagging through traffic trying to get here. But I'm just an impatient person. But I'm working on that.
So before we get too far into Tates and Associates, the conglomerate of a company that you have, I want to go back because you said something very important that women are listening, right? And it's with the women being Women History Month, women suffer with this. You said you found your purpose when you had a mission and a goal that you had already went to school for. You was an engineer and you was in the military, you was doing that job, but you found your purpose. How do women navigate through what I went to school for, but it's not my purpose? But how do you switch gears? What does that look like?
First of all, it's scary to a lot of women who find themselves, women and men, but obviously we'll in honor of Women's History Month, we'll focus on women. And I'm a certified life coach. I work with people. Don't call me about your relationships. I do it in the form of your profession and how you move through life. I ain't worried about you and your boo not getting along. That's not the coaching I do. But I run into so many people who are frustrated because they were like me, navigated into a certain career path, either because of family legacy. They're all teachers, so you need to be a teacher too, or they're all in this. So they are very frustrated because they don't find the role fulfilling, yet they feel stuck because they've invested not only money and time into getting that educational degree, but then also now you're rooted in that field. And so now it may be tied to how much money you're earning, and it's hard to leave as well. But I work with a number of people who are just very frustrated in their job and want to do something different. And I say when you discover that, then it's time for you to start making a plan. And that plan does not mean that you have to change professions or careers next week or next month or even next year. But if you start working on that, I work with individuals now, what I call the E to E bridge. How do you move from being an employee to an entrepreneur to finally do what you really love to do? Some people make a mid life career change. Some people wait until it's time to retire. Some people wait until it's a major life change, like having a baby or divorce to do that. Some of those are opportune times to do it. But others just say, hey, I'm going to start running it parallel as a second career and a part-time until I can eventually get to what I want to do. There's several pathways to do it, but my best advice is don't stay stuck. Don't stay stuck in it. And you know that you hate what you're doing and you don't feel like you're adding value because you know, that's not what you were here for, right? If you don't feel it in your heart and your spirit that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because every day I wake up knowing for sure, without a doubt, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that is so fulfilling for me. So I want everybody to have that feeling as well. That it may be tough, it may be hard to get there, but once you're there, you feel you're serving in your purpose. And that is so rewarding overall.
I appreciate you sharing that because I think a lot of people that watch our show, they're going through that. And you're afraid to fail. You're afraid to leave the income. You're afraid you got kids, you got a husband, you got a wife. And the best thing I can say to people is you're going to lose something. As Steve Harvey say, it's going to hurt like hell to become successful, right? You're going to get skinned up, right? And you're going to lose a lot of people along the way. But how bad do you want it?
Exactly.
And I think that's the thing that you have to go into.
It is. And the three fears that I have encountered in coaching people who are ready to make that move or have been hesitant to make that move is, one is finances. How am I feed my family? Especially if you're making a decent income and that feel that you've invested that education and time into. The second thing is the fear of failure, right? I already know this, but now I'm coming out of my comfort zone. So the finance, the comfort zone. And the third thing is the fear of what other folks gonna say. Remember I said people go into career paths because of legacy, and my mama was a teacher, so I got to be a teacher. And then they're very frustrated with it because they know that that's not where they're supposed to be. But they are so fearful to make that move of what mama and them gonna say or what the streets gonna say about them making that move that they stay in it. And so if they can conquer those three things, and I work with them on, setting a clear path, daily affirmations if necessary. What can you do to kind of bridge you to where you're more comfortable in doing?
Wow. Y'all see why she's my sister, right? Y'all understand, right? You know why I am the way I am, right? Real talk. I got a story to tell y'all shortly about when I got on the radio. My mama said to her, "Why don't you speak more like Melva Tate?"
No, I never heard that.
Yeah,
you never told me that.
I tell you about it. But if you guys just like in Dr. Melva Tate's in the building, so now we're at her career. You're in the military. You didn't get out. You didn't did your 4 years. So what happened to you there after that, sis?
So you know what? I went. Luckily for me, I got hired or knew I wasn't going to do that. Knew I wanted to be in that HR related, employee relations type field, and found a job. So what's ironic, I shared this story the other day, is that most people know my business partner, Melbury, right?
Yes.
Who's here kind of joined us and from Atlanta. But I met Melbury at my very first job after the military.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes. And so people, when I first started, everybody's like, oh, you got to meet Melbury. You got to meet Mel. I was like, who is this Melbury chick they want me to meet, right? They were all hyping her up. Come to find out, one, we were only 2 Black girls in the company, right? It was an engineering firm. So clearly they felt that connection. Then the names are similar and everything else. So we met, went to lunch, and the rest is history. We've been lifelong friends.
But if they see her, she looks like your sister. When
You
I
think
first
so?
met, no, because y'all been learning. But when I first met you and she came to the studio, I thought that was your sister. And I thought it was a mix up in the names because your names, you're Melva and she's Melva Reed, right? So I never knew that y'all was not kin until later on that you told me that.
Really?
Because
listen, even now, Melbury got promoted. So she's been working with my company for years, even part-time. She got a degree in HR and everything else. And so she's always been that right hand for me when I needed support. And proud to say that, she got promoted to COO this year because we're continue to grow. But it's so funny when she started being more actively involved, particularly in managing some of our client accounts. and I would copy her on there. People thought that it was me copying myself because they came back and said, "Well, I thought Melba Reed was your full name, and you
Right.
just used Melba as a short part of it." And I was like, "No, we
No.
two totally different, two totally different
And
people,
now I
right?"
want y'all to, as y'all listen to this story, right? And make sure y'all grab your coffee. We locked in here at the Fit the Coffee Parlor. I want y'all to know and understand something about when she said friend, right? Where they started from. Now, as the story goes along, we're going somewhere with this, y'all. I promise you. As the story goes along, America, right? You're going to see how we can take care of each other. So y'all was at the engineering firm. Y'all
Yes.
met at the same time. I mean, y'all met there.
Yes.
So what happened?
So we met and had an instant connection. You know,
Mhm.
it's there are people. I'm a very strong believer in faith and God's will and
Mhm.
God's plan for us. And I also realize there are people who enter our life for a reason, season, a lifetime.
Mhm.
And if you're intuitive enough, you realize what that person role will be. Sometimes it takes time for it to flush out.
Mhm.
But I realized very early that Melbury was going to be one of those lifetime people in my life. And I say people because she has been in so many capacities for me, from being a teammate, a coworker, you know, and then a friend, and then a roommate, because we actually roomed together.
Oh, okay.
We actually started a business together, probably about a year or two after we met each other, because we both realized, hey, we had young kids and we need to earn some money. And so we had a cleaning business together. And then, but we have done all of these things together. And so then she went back to just being a friend. And then she introduced me to Daniel, you know, my ex-husband.
Right.
So she had an integral part in that.
Right.
Of course, you know, we said that she's responsible for getting Danielle here. She's Danielle's godmother. I mean, so the list goes on of all the titles that she has in my life. And now to be a true business partner is just phenomenal.
Wow.
But to see how we have grown and matured over the years, I don't think we've ever had an argument. A disagreement, a difference of opinion, yes, but never an argument. And the relationship was so important that when I decided to bring her on full time as a senior project administrator a couple of years ago, it was that we wanted to ensure that the friendship outlasted the business relationship. And so we actually brought in my executive coach, Suzanne Martin, to coach us through
Oh, wow.
how we spent thousands of dollars on this to make sure that we were rightly aligned and clearly understood each other from a business standpoint.
Okay, we got to stop right there. Stop the show. Grab your coffee. Because I don't think people heard what you just said, right? The coach got a coach.
The coach got a coach.
To coach her on the next move with her friend.
Yes.
This is important.
Yes.
And I learned this from you, right? That you cannot be the smartest person in the room. Ooh. The one thing you taught me, you know, over the years, the room that you're in is the biggest you're going to grow. Exactly. You got to be in a room that's bigger than you, right? You always told me, and this is no bragging, but this is the honest God truth. I deal with millionaires. I'm in rooms with millionaires, right? This was not a brag or a boast from you. You taught me that I learn from these people. I get in their network from these people, right? And when I'm listening to what you are saying, still something I learned from you. I learned that I needed to be coached.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I did. Even though no matter who you may think you are, you got to have somebody to teach you. And when I saw you doing that, right, it made me say, take a pause. I took some of it late. I'm not going to lie, because I'm like, man, I don't need all that crap. But watching you go through the process, right, of being coached, can you speak a little bit more to the, because I know we got a little bit more of your story, but we got to make sure people understanding the intricate parts of being from poor, going through regular life, getting to this point. Damn it, you didn't do it by yourself.
Exactly.
There were some steps that you had to take and take back from being impatient, but you had to listen to somebody too. And then you had to get coaching after you went to school. So can you talk a little bit more to that part about getting a coach?
Oh, yeah. Listen, I say that I am where the Lord wants me to be. So I never put underemphasize that.
Right.
And a lot of people are not where they need to be because they hadn't followed the Lord. And I'm going to leave that right there. Okay. But you're right. If you think about any successful person, whether they are an artist
Mhm.
or an athlete, they have coaches. You know, if you think about Steph Curry hitting all them threes and just breaking that record last week for
4,000.
for
Mhm.
3 pointers,
Mhm.
do you think he now there's natural talent? I'm not brushing away the fact that there are many of us who have natural talents. I talked about being a leader very early on in life,
Mhm.
but you need to make sure that you have someone who can fine tune that natural gift that you have.
Yes.
And a coach will do that.
Mhm.
So great leaders have coaches who help coach them. And you're absolutely right about not wanting to be the smartest one in the room. When you now look, I love to say I walk in the room and I dominate the room, but that's because I'm almost 6 feet tall, right? And I got a little swag about me when I
You
walk
do.
in, a little sway. I
Yeah.
won't say swag, but a little sway.
Right.
But I don't want to be the smartest one in the room. I want to be if my time, every minute of my time is valuable. And I hear the Holy Spirit saying, slow down and listen more, lean in more. You don't have to be on all the time. But if I'm going to be in a room where someone, I want to be able to glean information from them. Because eventually, if you're the smartest one in the room, and that means that you're pouring out, whether that's knowledge or your resources or even your energy, you're going to be depleted. So who's filling you up?
Mm.
Who's going to fill you up?
Mm.
So if you're in a room where you can learn from, or you are in a space where someone has a bigger energy or vibe than you can feed off that.
Mhm.
We all need to be fed. But I think the ego gets in the way of people feeling like they've got to have the spotlight consistently on them, or they're the one who knows everything. And therefore, but that's that's insecurities. That
And I
show
think,
up.
people listen to the show. I know his nephew right now, he's listening to the show, right? He's seeing some things right now because when I walk into a room, I own it,
Uh-huh.
right? That's just like you said. You
Mhm.
got that. I got that swag about me,
Mhm.
right? I'm that person. But he knows, and I say this all the time.
Mhm.
And so the people that he meet that's been around me, he see that everybody that's in my life, when they walk into the room, right,
Uh-huh.
they light the room up.
Uh-huh.
You command
Mhm.
without commanding.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's what I loved about you. And like I said, I learned so much. Sometimes you can learn from people just by watching.
Mhm.
And here's
Mhm.
another thing, y'all, I want you to speak on a little bit before we move on with your story. You've always told me, don't be afraid of the ask,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You can ask anything. The worst thing they can tell you is no,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You always said, if you see something and you don't know it, ask the person about
Mhm.
it. Speak a little bit to that.
We as beings are always learning and growing.
Mhm.
I did a workshop before, and we were using some data, and it says that we process millions of thoughts in a second.
Mhm.
We don't realize it, but even now, my peripheral vision is seeing cars pass by, and I'm recognizing the color, and I hear sound. So our mind is always working, and
Mhm.
we're only using 20 or 30% of our mind capacity. That kind of blows me away.
Yeah.
That we're processing that much with so little space, and we can do so much more, right? So I'm always willing to learn. And you
Mhm.
got to be able to listen to people. You got to, I think, have that thinking cap on and be willing to learn. And
Right.
so when you go in intentionally saying, what can I learn in this environment? What can I learn from this person? What can life show me that's different than what I've already previously experienced? Then you're always going to be open to receiving. And if you already have blocked off the fact that you're this great, phenomenal person,
Mhm.
and I can do all things and everything else, then you're not going to be open to receiving that.
Thanks for sharing this with us.
Yeah.
Let's go here. It's time to get into you now.
Okay.
The present, right? We got the history. We know about your family. We know about your mom and dad, your daughters, your son, good friend Melvery. Let's get into Taste and Associates, Doctor.
Okay.
Dr. Tate.
Okay.
Talk to me about it. What was the inspiration of starting that company? What did you want it to be? Where are you with it now?
So I'm proud to say that we'll celebrate 17 years full time in business. In actuality, it's 27 years because I started it as a sideline business 10 years before I actually launched it, which means that I was doing work for someone, Joe. Somebody asked me because of my skill set, hey, can you help me do a resume? Or hey, I'm starting a new company and I need a handbook. And because, like you said, I'm a giver and I'm proud to be a giver. That's just one of my gifts that I'm blessed with, to be a giver open heartedly. And so people would ask me to do this and do that. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Because I'm helping people on the journey, right? And then somebody messed up everybody else when they said, and I'll pay you for it. And I was like, what? You gonna pay me to do something I love?
Right.
And so that kind of, I was like, well, I can start a business for this. And so the next request that came up, I was like, yeah, I can do it. And this is what it's going to cost you. And so people were like, okay. And so people were willing to pay because I had the goods that they needed.
Right.
And so that kind of led me to believe that even though I was still working full time, had a very demanding job at that time, I had the capacity on nights and weekends to help somebody else start their dream. So whether it was helping someone write a resume to get that next opportunity, or helping an entrepreneur create a handbook because they were hiring a team to start their business, that let me know, oh, this is something you can do. So as someone who worked in human resource management as a generalist, that means I did a little bit of everything. I realized at the end of the day, in doing all of that work, there was a pile that I had that was very thin at the end of the day. And those were those tasks that I had that I was passionate about. And so I always knocked through those first. And then I had the big pile of stuff that I procrastinated about. And I was like, oh, I hate doing this stuff. And so when I decided it's time for me, or finally listened to the Holy Spirit pushing me,
Gotcha.
I said that, you know what? I'm going to start my own firm, and I'm going to focus on the things that I'm really passionate about and I'm good at. And this stuff that I procrastinate about and hate doing, even though I'm good at it, because I'm a smart chick now, I can figure it out. I didn't want to offer that. And so when I started my business, I really had that strategy in mind.
Wow.
That I would do those things that I was really good at and passionate about. And I only now do work and only work with people that I have a connection with. I don't take every contract, every offer. There have been people who said, hey, such and such is going to need a consulting firm for to hire their next CEO, this nonprofit. And I go, I don't know about that, because I don't like their energy. And, they may have some things in their past that won't jive with me. So I turn down a lot of offers if it doesn't align with me.
Right.
And that's kind of how I got started. So I started as a one-person team doing those things. I had a couple of contracts. So back in 2008, what was ironic is you know what happened in 2008, right? The market tanked, right?
Yeah.
And so all of those opportunities that I had already solidified as I was exiting out kind of dried up because people were concerned about their money and their finances, kind of like the situation we're in now, the unknown. And so what paid off for me and what helped me be successful is that along this journey, I was always actively involved in the community and in my professional field. So people knew me for the expertise that I brought to the table that I was unpaid for. So in those moments of me paying it forward, serving on this committee, or being the president of this organization, or being a director in this association, those things paid off. Because as people start having a need, I didn't have to advertise. People would come to me and say, oh, and say, hey, somebody said I needed to call you for X, Y, and Z. So literally, I started my business on no marketing, no advertising, simply word of mouth from people that I call my brand ambassadors, who knew me as the talent that I was and said, hey, we got an opportunity for you. And I could tell you, I remember my first speaking contract or team training, was right here in Birmingham for one of the Department of Justice, ironically. And I'm trying to remember the young lady name who gave me the opportunity, but I did a 2-hour workshop for them for $300. Now, I know some people probably still paying that today, but you ain't gonna give me for $300, right? Maybe $3,000 to do an hour and a half, 2-hour workshop.
You're not gonna get her for it. Let me tell you something. 3,000 really for 2 hours for 30 minutes. What?
I do some fee wave stuff, but I just think back on that.
Right.
That person remembered me, and she was one that was in part of the membership in the association that I was with, and I realized the value of paying it forward. So when you can show up for people and be there and do your absolute best. So if you're going to say yes to any opportunity, don't half step it, because you never know where that opportunity would lead and what connections it will lead to.
it's so many different things that I want to ask you, but we don't have a whole lot of time to go into everything. But if they do
We're gonna
want
have
to,
to do a part two.
we got to
I'm
do a
coming
part
back
two.
in about 3 or
Yes,
6
yeah,
months.
yeah.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
definitely gonna do
okay.
a part two because I want to go more into the strategies
Uh-huh.
of all this stuff that you're talking about because I know them, but this is just some stuff that I think people just really need to hear from somebody that's successful
Yeah.
and have been through it. But to get back to the Taylor and Associates business, the reason why this is important, y'all, is because she built this business herself,
Mhm. I did.
being a mom and a wife, and she brought her friend in. This is where Melvery comes into the
Hmm.
picture, right? Melvery was around, but throughout the time, because I remember when I first met you, she was around, but she wasn't where she is in the company now.
Hmm.
But now she's a huge part of this
A
company,
primary principal in the
right?
company.
And so
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to, talk about, this part of you're always paying it forward and you always making sure you take care of people around you,
Yeah.
and you never know, don't crap on nobody's dream. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
if Melvary didn't believe in y'all wasn't really good friends,
Right.
look who you opened up the door for.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this really tall, proudly. I'm gonna say that you are the Jay-Z of your industry, of what you do,
Oh well, thank
right?
you.
You know what I mean? So, but you have brought all your friends into
Hmm.
the portions of your business that it fits for them.
Hmm.
You've even brought me in,
Oh yeah.
and I've got some nice paying gigs,
Right.
working with you,
Right.
right? And I'm very proud and honored to say that. But I'm just saying, I've watched you over the years, not just do here and go here and say, "Hey Joe, how you doing?" or "Hey
Hmm.
Melvary, how you doing?" You work with people. This is important. Melville works with people. She groomed them. She teaches you. She gives you. And then she gives you some more, right? And then she leaves and go do her thing. And then when she sees something out there in the world, when she needs something, she knows somebody, she's gonna call you to do that specific thing. Where the hell did that come from? And being that big from where you didn't came
Hmm.
from, how did you be able to see? Okay, this person got this talent, and I'm gonna hold them in my head. Now you this person where you sitting around with CEOs, presidents, and all these other people, but all of a sudden you can make a phone call back to somebody like a Joy or Melvery, or you know what I'm saying, and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
I need you to come here. We get you in the airplane for you. Gonna do this." Where did that come from?
I think I sat down one day and it amazed me. In a day's time,
Mhm.
I had talked to a CEO of a major corporation.
Mhm.
I talked to a executive director of a huge nonprofit. I talked to a college president.
Mhm.
And I talked. It was like 5 or 6 other. I mean, they were like back to back to back calls, and I was
Mhm.
like, man, the fact that these people are my mayors from
Mhm.
cities, the fact that these people are my Rolodex or have my number and
Mhm.
can call me and say, hey, I need this. I remember President of Alabama State saying, hey, you've done great work. I mean, Alabama A&M saying, hey, you've done great work for us. And I got a peer that's at another college in Texas that I want you to talk to because they
Mhm.
need somebody to help you. And so that just amazed me that, if you could do well and you could help others out. So I'm saying that in twofold
Mhm.
because others have looked out for me.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned early on, not having to market my business, but other people are praising my name and the work that I do. I really appreciate that. But then that also lets me know that I have to help others. My business mentor is Robert Earl Kelly. Most
Yes.
people knew him from Kelly Construction
Instructions.
Company, just a cut up guy. He would have this analogy that he would use, and it was a picture that he showed me. Because most people knew he was the last employer that I had. He's the last person I ever worked with, and so he showed this picture of a group of spiders building a spider web, and on the path was coming a gorilla, and this one spider said to the others that were assembling the spider web, if we catch this, we all gonna eat well. And so that has always resonated with me. You could
Okay.
be this small piece, but if you
Mhm.
work together with other people,
Mhm.
that big thing can come, right? So I never thought it was just all about me. It has always been about how
Wow.
I could help others.
Wow.
One of the other things that's interesting, and I mentioned this when I was in a meeting last week for Women's History Month, and I said that you drive around Birmingham, which is a very historic city.
Mhm.
And if you know anything about the history of Birmingham, you also know about the family names that were big players in building of this city, in
Mhm.
this community. And you can look around because you see their names on buildings. And so my mom would tease me all the time when I started my business because I was always on the go. I'd be in Montgomery one day, Huntsville the next day, Sylacauga the following day. And I was about to say my nickname. She called me. I ain't gonna say that. But she said, Melva Jean. Melva Jean, you're always on the go.
Mhm.
And I said, Mom, I work hard. I enjoy what I do. I said, but believe this. One day I'm gonna work hard enough to put your name on one of them buildings downtown. And so that's what I'm working for. Now, whether it come to pass or not, I don't know.
It will.
But I work hard for a legacy because I don't want my daughter to have to work as hard as I'm working. I don't want my granddaughter to work as hard as I've had to work. I want things to be a little bit easier for them. I don't want them to have it easy, but I certainly want things to be a little bit easier for them.
I'm laughing because I know nephew is sitting here watching the show and he's heard all this before because that's what I learned from you, right? About the legacy, about building, for the family and all this other stuff, right? The story that you guys are hearing is simply amazing. And why I wanted you to come on was important to me because your story is the average person that can succeed.
Mm-hmm.
You wasn't born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
Not at all.
It was hard work. It was failures. We didn't talk about those, but we want to talk about those a little bit later. I mean, on another show. Mm-hmm. But you made it. You became the successful person everybody knows. And during that journey, you met me, right? And we met on another radio show, right? How was that for you? I'm gonna let you tell that story.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask no questions. I'm gonna let you do the interview now.
Well, first of all, you said I'm successful, and so although I don't suffer from imposter syndrome, I have not rated myself as successful. Now, other people have. Tomorrow I get an opportunity to host the Birmingham Business Journal's nonprofit award luncheon, and they have asked me to MC the event. And that's because last year I won the award for nonprofit consultant of the year. So it's my time to give back. So even though I have accolades like that, I still don't really consider myself successful. I'm succeeding, meaning that I'm continuously on that journey. But thank you for saying that. We met, and it was so funny, because me, you, and Joy are just, two peas in the pod, right?
Right.
It's just, and then we add bars in there. He kind of add the balance to us. But it was so interesting because I'd met you before through some other event and knew your name. I'd met Joy before, knew her name, but none of us were as close as we are now. I mean, literally, we consider ourselves a sister and brotherly bond now because we've been through some things together, spent a lot of time together, and seen the ups and downs and relationships and children and everything else. But you were on there doing the husband and the tools and
H2G husbands.
Yeah, H2G husbands, telling people how to winterize their homes and how to do things and fix things. Of course, Joy was on there bringing the levity, and laughter to the show. And then, of course, I was on there just giving career advice, right? Career advice and business advice. And then after that show, I can't even remember how many shows we did. There wasn't many.
It wasn't many. Yeah.
But we knew we had a vibe. And so one of the things that I talk about with great teams is they have that synergy. And when that synergy hits, because it's like a spark that you did not anticipate when those ingredients come together. It's almost like mixing a bomb together. And when those ingredients come together, you realize you have great chemistry and that's something there. And so when you start talking about the radio show that you wanted to start, and having some female voices on there to add some balance to your craziness. Well, I don't know about Joy because she was crazy too.
She just,
I think I was just a professional voice.
On
the show.
Yeah, you were.
I laugh and I'll cut up, and people know me.
But you can bring it back to
yeah. It's like, hey, let's get this stuff done.
We stayed out there
way too long.
Way too long.
Had way too much fun.
Right. The show got canceled. Holly show got canceled, and we're still waiting on the email or the phone call to let them know that they canceled the show.
Like we were showing up on the Saturday morning, like, well, what's going on?
He never told the show was canceled.
He never told us.
But I was on the show for a specific reason because I was getting ready to start my radio show, and I didn't know how to do radio.
Okay,
that's why.
So really, you were on that show.
I was on that. Joy brought me onto that show.
Okay.
Joy brought me onto that show because I asked her, could I just sit? I asked, could I sit in and watch?
Oh wow!
Right, and so. I was sitting in, I was like the second or third week I was sitting in when you showed up, right?
Okay.
And so Holly said, you're just not going to sit here. And so you want to, what do you do? Something. So Holly just put me on the microphone. I wasn't on the show. I was not on that show at all.
I did not realize that.
Right. And you remember I was Facebook had just came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on there saying I was taking pictures and said we on the Holly Show, call in, right? And you remember, I don't know if you was there that day, but people started calling in and say, I'm calling into the Joe Lockett show.
Oh no, I did not realize that.
Yes, because I was on Facebook and they thought it was my show.
Oh wow.
And it was on Holly Show, but that's when I realized the connection with Facebook and radio.
Oh wow.
Because somebody said my name, right, when they
I
called
wonder if
into the
Hollis
show.
had his feelings hurt about that.
I don't
We
know.
don't know.
I don't know, but that's what actually really happened. Right.
Wow.
So I was on that show to learn how to do radio. When the show got canceled, we had a chemistry, and I said, can we have a meeting?
Yeah.
That morning for breakfast.
Yeah.
And I said, I would love to have you guys on the show with me. I don't know how it's going to go.
Mhm.
I said, I'll pay for it.
Uh-huh.
I said, but do you guys anyway? Long story short, y'all said yes to me.
Yes,
I don't know
we
why
said
y'all
yes.
said yes. Y'all said yes. That created,
because we were part of your journey. Yeah.
but you did, and that created the Joe Lockett show.
Mm-hmm.
My show and who I am today was created because of y'all.
Mm-hmm.
The Joe Lockett show has never been about me though. Now you spoke about this earlier,
Mm-hmm.
right? About something being bigger than you. The Joe Lockett show was never about me.
Mm-hmm.
It was about a platform, and I call it the PP, pimp the
Mhm.
platform. Everybody build off the Joe Lockett show and go do their own thing.
Uh-huh.
Was that not the intention in the beginning?
I mean,
Did-
it really, really. And we see, the. I think our shining example is that because I've always kind of been in that business lane and doing my thing. I think the shining example is Joy and how she took off, right? Because Joy, if anybody know Joy, she loved to eat, right?
Yes.
And then there were some connections that you had and she had, so we would just bring food in there,
Mhm.
and she started talking about the food, and then before you know it, that became one of her core topics that she
Yep.
was talking about food and bringing people in and exposing our audiences to new restaurants and new flavors that are around that people were not familiar with. And just to know that she took that one idea of loving chicken wings,
Right.
and then started her whole tourism business
did.
from that with her Eat, Drink, and Ride tour. It's just so amazing and so phenomenal.
And Uncle Bob's photography
Oh yes,
started with us. Well, I ain't gonna say started with us,
yeah,
but he was doing
always doing
headshots.
it. But yeah, he was
doing
on the
headshots.
professional
But then-
corporate side,
yes.
and then
And then he came in, he started doing it for other people because they saw it because we advertised and we talked about him.
and
and then-
media events now and big events now
Yes.
and everything else. Yeah.
Also interns.
Mm-hmm.
We have put a lot of people in radio, and
Uh-huh.
a lot of people they see on radio and TV, they don't know it actually came from the Joe Lockett show.
Yeah. Various forms of media.
Various forms of
absolutely,
media. Also, the book bag drive. We was one of the first people that turned out at the Galleria. Remember,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
we shut the Galleria down.
Mhm.
You remember we shut down Hamburger Heaven?
Mm-hmm.
The police came in because we had some.
Right. There's like I got too many people out here.
We was all on TV. That was all because of that synergy that we had.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a story I want to tell before we get out of here. That the greatness to you and who you are as a person. We got a phone call. I don't know if it was that night or it was that morning. And the phone call came in, y'all, that Melva's mom had passed. Pull that picture up of her mom, because I want her mom to be there. Of course, we think you're not coming, right? Sending love and condolences. We getting ready to do the show, to say thank you for everything, sis. Cool, right? I pull up in the parking lot because my show started at 6:00 in the morning. Okay. We'll tell another story about that, how we sit up in the parking lot. But as we going through the door opens behind me and it's you.
Yeah.
It was you.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom had just passed.
Yeah.
How? And still it makes me tear to the point because it's like my mom passing. I ain't coming to work.
Yeah.
I ain't getting paid too.
Yeah.
And you know what you told me? This is what my mom would have wanted me to do.
Absolutely. That's what I'm about to repeat. So my mom and I had a very strong relationship. My siblings get upset when I say this, but I was the only planned child my parents had. Now, in actuality, they were trying for a boy because I have two older sisters. So I do have to put that caveat out there. They wanted a boy that they were going to name Melvin. But I was the only planned pregnancy they had. And my mom and I were very close. And so even growing up, when she would get up in the mornings on Saturday mornings after working all week, and back then they would go pay bills, right? You didn't pay them by your phone, or they would go to the place. I would be up early, waiting for her to get up, listening for her to get up, and ask if I could ride with her to go pay bills. So we always had a close relationship. And then even when I had my son Jamel, my mom was the primary caretaker. So we really had a very special bond. My mom dealt with 20 years of lupus. And so as her health deteriorated, we saw her quality of life deteriorate, particularly in that last year. The beauty of it was that my mom knew Christ. She had a very strong faith, and she had prepared herself. And in the conversations with us, she had prepared us for her departure. So I think that was why it was not so hard. Now, her passing was because, in essence, she died from a surgery that did not go well, and they couldn't save her in the surgery, and so they finally had to, remove the life support from her. And but we were at peace. So that was it. I think I've never labeled it as that because I've always said, well, this is what my mom would want to do. Just keep going. Don't lay down. You got something to do. But it was peace in knowing that she had transitioned well. And I was there that morning before she went in surgery with me and my sister Joyce and my aunt. And she had a glow about her. She was singing and smiling and everything that was not the way she had been those 2 previous days. So when I reflect on that, I knew she was ready. So it was knowing that she was at peace gave me peace. And not only did I do that show that morning, I actually had to do some board governance training, I think for the Birmingham City Libraries, for their board of directors. And I showed up for that. And they was like, you here? You're not? No, I didn't cancel because I had made a commitment. And I knew that's what my mom wanted me to do. And literally after I finished the training, I went to the house and my aunts were there, my sister was there, and we were kind of going through some stuff and we had a chance to bond. So I didn't miss that. But it was doing what I know my mom would want me to do and not just lay down and wallow in it. But I had a mission and I stick to the mission.
You showed me commitment. You showed me love that day. It may have been different for you while you were doing it. But for me, on the receiving end, knowing that you were still there at 6:00 in the morning, what had just happened.
The night before.
Yeah,
7 o'clock
before.
that night before.
Yeah. I can't say enough. You heard me tell the story a couple of times, and I would never forget that. It's another thing I want to say about you and give you your flowers here. That was a time on my radio show that I was paying for it, right? And I was struggling.
Yeah. That was a big investment in you. And that's one thing that I applaud you for. And I know we're probably going to go over time and I'm interrupting you, but I have always celebrated the fact that through thick and thin, rough times and easy times, you stay committed to your calling and your purpose. And that if I could leave any negative information with people is that it's not going to be easy. It's never been easy for me. There have been times when I thought about doing something different, but I had to stay focused on what I was called to do and purpose to do. And I applaud you for that. I applaud you for that. And the fact that as you opened up and told people that times may be difficult now or uncertain, to keep the faith, I celebrate you for keeping the faith because you were born for media. It took you a while on that journey to get there to decide what it's supposed to look like. And it certainly have evolved over the years, but you in media is where you're supposed to be through thick and thin. So I'm glad I could sow a seed to help.
You sowed a big seed. There was a time when I didn't have the money to pay for the show.
For the next week.
And I told everybody that this may be our last week because I had pulled every resource I had, didn't have anything. And I don't know if it was at the end of the show or before we left, this lady came to me and said, how much? Right? Because they asked how much it was, and I told her the amount. She wrote a check and said, here you go, baby brother. I'm sowing a seed. This is what she said to me. These are your words. I remember distinctly what you said to me. I am sowing a seed into you. Keep going. I'm still here today because you sowed a seed into me. Because if you wouldn't have did that, I couldn't have paid for that show.
And you probably would have paused and sowing seeds into others because seeds reproduce seeds. You know that, right?
Yes.
So sowing a seed into you meant that you had another opportunity to sow a seed into somebody else.
And that's why when I tell people, man, when God got something for you, he's not going to let you fail. He's going to send somebody.
That ram in the bush.
Listen, that has happened to me at least 2 or 3 times on that show.
Mhm.
Natasha Roger was another one.
Uh-huh.
When I was going through another trial and tribulations, it was the way I had finally got the daytime spot,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't have the money, right? And this radio station like, hey, if you don't get it by the end of this week,
Mhm.
and she walked through the door, she said, Joe, I don't have the money that I know that you need. She said, but this is all I can pay you. Can you do this thing? And it was the exact amount
That you needed.
And here's the crazy part. The same amount that she gave me that time was the same amount that you gave me the first time.
Wow.
Uncle Boz was sitting there. He like,
Wow.
bruh, you gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If y'all have listened to this story, and if y'all are watching this, drinking your coffee this morning,
Yeah.
hopefully it's an inspiring and inspiration to you at the end of the day to know that work hard. And this is especially for the women. Men, we're gonna get you to another day, but this is for the women out there. Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you Asian, whether you Latino, it doesn't matter. Believe in yourself.
That's right. And put in the work. Don't, I think one of the things that hold us back is that we're waiting for somebody to tap us and say it's our turn.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put in the work, put yourself out there, be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be vulnerable. And it is okay to make mistakes.
It's
okay to make mistakes along the way. But sow as many seeds as you can. And it doesn't have to be financial.
Right.
Because you've referenced a lot of the knowledge nuggets that I've shared with you along the way. Those are more important that you use those than the financial resources.
I'm gonna tell you, because I've had you in my life, I became rich. Let me say that again. Having somebody like you in my life have made me the person I consider for today, with my chest out, you know what I'm saying, dressed
Tell me
here.
what your mama said now.
Okay, so we talked about this in the show. So when we was on this show, right, and I was finding my voice because you was there the first time I did the show.
Yes.
Right. You remember the first words that came out of my mouth?
No.
Okay, so you remember when they had this? I think his name was Stuart.
Okay.
And he counted down, and I was nervous, right? And I said, "Ha!" You remember?
No.
But that's the way the show started a couple of times until I found my voice, because I was nervous, and I said, "Ha!" And then because Joe bust out laughing, you bust out laughing, and so when we was doing the show, y'all carried me because Joe was a comedian. She already knew about radio and TV. You was a professional. I didn't know because I was like, let's practice.
And we look like practice.
Practice what? Yeah, I was a mess. But anyway, they carried the show, and so I was trying to find out what my voice was on radio, right? And I got off radio. My mom listened to the show. She was like, "Good show, son. Good show, son." Right? And I think I had started at the time. I was starting to feel talking loud, right? Mm-hmm. That was the thing, because she like I was screaming at y'all or whatever, because we found out that worked. She said, "Son, let's just come over to the house. I want to talk to you." Right?
Oh, she brought you. She wasn't to do it in person.
Yeah. She said, "I know you're working hard, son. I know you're doing good, son. I'm proud. I'm proud of you, babe. I'm proud." Your mama set you up, right? Mm-hmm. But she said, "You need to talk like you got some sense." Right? You need to talk more like Melva. You know how Melva talk like she's poised, and she talks very professionally, and she slows down, and she speaks all her words perfectly. You need to learn how to speak like her, right?
I never knew that.
And I'm sitting there like, Mom, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't be you.
Yeah. Be your authentic self.
What I learned, and Oprah Winfrey said the best, and she tried to be like Barbara Walters. It didn't work.
Exactly.
Right? When I tried to be in a shell and try to do the news or whatever, sit here and like, so how are you doing today? Yeah. I'm glad to have you on my show. That ain't the hell who I am.
Exactly.
That don't work.
Exactly.
I didn't feel it. Right? Stephen A. Smith, when I saw him on TV doing sports, that's where that's where that came from. Right? Because when I was with Joe, me and George talk all the time about styles and different stuff, right? I found that I loved what he was doing. I could do that because that's who the hell I am, right?
Yeah, the combative type.
I'm gonna come at you. I'm gonna say something, blah, 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 blah. That worked for me.
Yes.
And I had told my mom, I said, Mom, if I'm gonna fail paying, I'm gonna fail doing it my way.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna fail doing the way that you think I should do it, because I don't feel right trying to be Melva Tate.
Exactly. And it was not gonna be authentic. So
and I tried.
If I'm gonna be anything, I'm gonna be my authentic self.
Yeah.
Whether it's Bugetto at one point or whatever it's gonna be, but I'm gonna be my authentic self. What you gonna get? Look, I like Mary J. Blige said, I'm just plain old Melva, right? So what you see is what you get. But I do think that was important that you did not take that. You listened, which is always important, but you did not take that advice to heart, because you felt in your spirit it was more important for you to be your authentic self that became your brand than trying to be someone else.
But it was tough because it was coming from mom.
Yeah.
Right. So it was me fighting against her,
Hmm.
but knowing that it wasn't the right thing for me.
But you're saying a mouthful because there are people who will be on our life's journey,
Mhm.
who will share with us what they feel and their opinion, and that's okay.
Mhm.
That's good that you hear different perspectives, but you got to know deep within yourself what is right for you,
Wow.
and that's why that soul searching comes into play.
We got one thing, last thing I want to ask you
Okay.
before we get out of here. I want to thank you for joining the show today. I know it's been,
Thank
it's
you.
been fun. I got to sip my cup before I do this. And it's good. It's good.
I'm a little nervous.
It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. After everything you've been through, where you are now, if you had to look back at young Melva Tate, what would you tell her?
You know, it's ironic because last week when I was a panelist at the Black Women's Mental Health Luncheon, they asked us the very same question. And ironically, Dr. Richardson asked us for a picture of our young self in advance. And I was curious of what that was going to lead to. So she asked me that question. And I was, so the funny thing is, you know, I grew up very awkward looking child, you know, and I wasn't in vibe or in vogue then, right? Because chocolate folks wasn't in vogue then. It was the light skinned girls with the little pretty hair. And so I was just a straight up olive oil looking little chocolate child whose self-confidence was tanked, right? Because I was always picked on. And I thought about it the other day and I had ran into guys that I grew up with and people I went to school with who always thought, oh, she's the ugly girl or she's not the one that's the most attractive and interesting. And I want to be like Julia Roberts in the movie. What big
Pretty
mistake?
Woman.
Right. Yeah, Pretty Woman, big mistake.
Right.
Look at me now, big mistake, right? But no, I have to think about that. I would tell that little girl who was very self-conscious of her looks, knew I was smart and knew I was important and knew I could lead, but you are right where you need to be. Wow. I would tell that little girl then, even though she was sad at times and wanted to look different and be different. And, you know, because I was wearing floods before floods came into town because I wore hand-me-downs, you know, that life is going to be okay. You are right where you need to be and enjoy every moment of it. Wow. Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you, Dr. Tate, for coming on to the show today. And if people
just
want to
find, I'm just playing.
Well, sis, if people want to find more about you out there on social media, or if they want to use your service, how can they find you?
Yeah, so the easiest way is listen, I'm Googleable. So you can just Google Melva Tate, literally. You can just Google Melva Tate.
Right.
I'm top line on Google. If you want to reach out to me, the best email address is melva@Melva Tate. And then if you'd like to set up a discovery call, if I've said something that you think is interesting, either for you personally on your professional journey or in your business, you can just go to www.askmelva.com and we can set up a time to talk.
Again, sis, Dr. Tate, mom, entrepreneur, CEO, we love you and thank you so much for doing everything you do around the world.
I'm finally here. I'm blessed to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, guys. I hope you guys have learned something from this. Make sure you share the video out there. Go out there and live your best.